Several years ago, I found myself navigating the tumultuous aftermath of a heart-wrenching breakup. At 25, I made the challenging decision to end my 7-year relationship with my 24-year-old girlfriend after the discovery of her infidelity. The added twist to this emotional saga was that we were cohabiting in an apartment with a stringent 1-month notice to vacate. Financial constraints and logistical challenges forced me into nearly a month of uncomfortably sharing the same space. The atmosphere was thick with tension, swinging between desperate attempts at reconciliation and vindictive efforts to make my life as uncomfortable as possible. As the final days of our cohabitation approached, I was faced with the harsh reality of having to return to the shared apartment for the dreaded landlord's inspection. The prospect of cleaning and making necessary repairs alongside someone from whom I had just severed emotional ties was far from appealing. Nevertheless, duty called, and I reluctantly resigned myself to the task. In the waning moments before my departure, as I sat in my car contemplating the tumultuous days ahead, she dropped a loaded statement that hung in the air like an unspoken threat. "You'd better really help me for the cleanup. You either clean really well, or I keep the security deposit." The nuances of our non-English conversation added an air of ambiguity, leaving me to decipher whether it was a threat or a choice. Yet, her tone and context swiftly clarified the intention behind those words. Now, a bit of context about me: while I might not revel in household chores, cleaning had never been a contentious issue. However, for my ex, certain tasks were off-limits due to the inherent disgust she felt. Over the course of our 7-year relationship, she had never taken on responsibilities like cleaning the toilets or the bathtub siphon, leaving those tasks squarely on my shoulders. Adding to the complexities, our financial dynamics were lopsided. As a working IT engineer, the security deposit, significant for her as a student, didn't carry the same weight for me. With a nonchalant "okay," I responded to her ultimatum. Her face betrayed a mix of confusion and surprise, struggling to grasp the implications of my words. Clarifying my stance, I uttered, "Okay, keep the deposit and do it all by yourself." Without waiting for a rebuttal, I drove off into the night, leaving the gravity of my decision to hang in the air. Upon my arrival home, a sense of liberation accompanied by a tinge of melancholy enveloped me. It was time to sever the final threads that bound us. I promptly sat down to compose a message to the landlord, with my ex in the CC, instructing them to refund the full deposit to her and none to me. And with that, I had made my exit, never to set foot in that apartment again.
A decade ago, the holiday season unfurled its tensions at the in-laws' abode, setting the stage for a memorable Christmas dinner. The matriarch of the family, infamous for her entitled disposition and a distinct disdain for the male species, had mastered the art of treating the wife like a personal servant. As the dinner hour approached, our protagonist encountered a culinary obstacle course, a menu devoid of anything suitable for consumption. This wasn't a matter of mere preference, it was a matter of avoiding serious gastrointestinal distress. However, the mother-in-law, wearing the badge of peculiar hospitality, staunchly adhered to the belief that guests should graciously accept whatever offerings were presented. Reflecting on past experiences, our protagonist couldn't help but draw a sharp contrast. Recollections of visits to his parents flooded in, where every effort was made to cater to his wife's dietary preferences, a courtesy that was conspicuously absent in the in-laws' domain. A dissonance echoed in the protagonist's thoughts, aggravated by the wife's somewhat ambivalent stance, aligning with her mother's abrasive philosophy. Fast forward to a recent evening, where the protagonist seized an opportune moment for subtle retribution. With the wife engrossed in work until after dinner, he orchestrated a culinary masterpiece around a central theme: sirloin steak, a dish that occupied the upper echelons of the mother-in-law's culinary disdain. Embracing the role of a doting father, he presented his daughter's cherished meal, a strategic move in the game of familial politics. The pivotal moment arrived as the protagonist proffered the plate of sirloin steak to the mother-in-law. Did she want some? It was a rhetorical question, for the disdain for sirloin steak ran deep within her culinary sensibilities. With a feigned expression of surprise, the protagonist uttered those sweet, vindictive words, "Oh, you should have told me you didn't eat steak." Revenge, served warm and seasoned with irony, unfolded as a meticulously crafted dinner, leaving the mother-in-law with a bitter taste of her own medicine, a dish of poetic justice with a side of culinary comeuppance.
I leased my rental condo to a single mother with 3 kids in 2016. It was a 3-bed, 2-bath. I had a grace period of 3 days for rent in there, but they were always late. I would not charge them late fees, thinking she is a single mother, and would follow up consistently to get my rent. Most of the time, I would receive it 2 to 3 weeks late and sometimes 2 months late. In my mind, as long as they are paying and I can help by giving them some time, all was good. Suddenly I find that in 2020, her husband lives there too. He travels for work but lives there, and the money that she has been sending me through Zelle has always been coming out of his account since day one. I let it go and still be civil, and he starts communicating with me at every delay. Sometimes he would go silent for 4 to 5 weeks, and I wouldn't be able to reach any of them. I would threaten eviction, and they would come back and pay me. In hindsight, I should have evicted them, but COVID happened, and I didn't want to throw them out. Finally, at the end of 2022, they informed me that by March 2023, they would be out. They just bought a house, and they were very appreciative of me being kind and helping them along the way. They were supposed to leave by March 6, 2023, and I told them that if they clean the house and leave it in good condition, they don't have to worry about rent for March. March 6th comes, and they tell me they are still moving and cleaning. I let it go as I had no potential renter yet, and I was just glad that they were cleaning it up. I still didn't have the key to the condo. I would communicate with them during the month of March, saying potential renters want to see the place, and they would tell me to send them over. Potential renters would go there and knock, but no one would open the door, and I would try to reach out, and they would not respond to me. This happened twice, and they would call me later that the potential renters never showed up and lied to me. I was getting antsy, and on March 20th, I called and texted both the husband and wife for a few days straight, asking them to give me the keys. Nothing. No response. On March 24th, my friend and I decided to head over there to see what is going on. We live an hour away. I call both of them, and no response. I decide to look them up on the county land records. I knew the county they were building a house in and was able to find their new address. My friend and I decide to go to their house and get the key. We reach there and knock on the door. The son opens and yells for his mom. His mom comes down and pretends to cry, saying we lost the key. In my mind, then why the heck couldn't they tell me, and why the heck would you ignore my countless texts and phone calls? At this point, I am still being civil, and I said that's fine. I will get the locksmith and charge them the fees. We go to the condo next, and to our surprise, the condo was open. They never bothered to lock it. As soon as my friend and I entered, these 3 words came out of our mouths: "Oh, my gosh." There was this horrible smell, all the walls had patches over them from a bad paint job, the fridge had food rotting in there, carpets stunk like they have never been cleaned. In one room on the carpet, there was a big paint stain, and the door was also busted. It was the worst feeling because I was so nice to them, and they left my condo unlocked for days, destroyed my place, didn't even have the decency to clean my place, or pick up my phone. I was furious that my kindness over the years was repaid by this. Finally, not knowing the extent of the damage, I reached out to them, saying I will keep the $1,000 deposit and am asking them to pay $1,800 more for the cleanup job. They decline on text. I tell them I will sue them. They ended up getting aggressive and told me they know the law too and am not getting a single penny out of them. Then I work with a lawyer in the first week, still not knowing the full extent of the damage, but just some. I sent a demand letter for $3,000. Nothing. Then I worked with a contractor, and just for the painting, it cost me around $7,000, as there were around 1,000 patches that they had to sand off. I am not even exaggerating. I got multiple quotes. The cleaning crew went in the morning at 4 a.m. and ended at 3 p.m. Everything that you can think of that was dirty was dirty. The oven, fridge had not been cleaned for years, there was heavy clogging in both bathrooms' drains, the toilet was worse than a public toilet. They charged me $600 to clean the house. It ended up costing me $7,600. I continue with the lawyer and end up filing a claim for $11,000, though people told me that I am wasting money and they will never pay. For me, I couldn't let them get away with it. I ended up charging them for late fees for not paying the month of March that I had agreed to waive off if they cleaned the house. I had in my contract $50 per day for any delay. By the time I had filed, it was easily a few $1,000s. I asked a few Redditors from my throwaway account and they told me about late fee regulations, but my lawyer told me that they did sign a contract, and in this state, we can sue them for $50 per day until the day we file. Then the saga begins. It was my responsibility to serve them and let them know the mediation, then it was my responsibility to serve them for the court date. They actively avoided being served twice, and it cost me $400 just to serve them twice. They still didn't show up for mediation or the court date, and judgment was filed in my favor as they didn't show up. Finally, an arrest warrant was out for both of them. I was asked to serve them again. I begged the clerk, saying I cannot spend more money to serve them. She got a document signed by the judge for an alternative method of serving that included text and email. I texted and emailed them their arrest warrants and the next court date. They finally showed up, and the judge made them give me all their information. They were in court, but I could appear on Zoom. I was able to ask them all their information, including social security number, driver's license number, bank account statements, salary, and work address. I have to say I felt a bit sorry as it seems they were still struggling and didn't have enough money to pay the rent based on their statements. The husband earns $150,000, and the wife earns $60,000, but their bank account didn't have any money. Finally, I told them I could start garnishing 25% of their monthly wages, or they could pay me immediately. They promised to pay me in chunks of $1,500 every month. I still don't have all of it yet, but them sitting there and giving me all the information was the best revenge I could get. If they would have just agreed to pay me $1,800 in the beginning or $3,000 that I demanded, they wouldn't have been on the hook for $11,000.
In the vast expanse of office paperwork, I found myself amidst a labyrinth of files, undertaking audits to usher our records into the new year. The company had long languished in the absence of meticulous administrative oversight, and I, a harbinger of order, had been hired to rectify the chaos, ensuring both state and federal compliance. In this intricate dance of data, one elusive figure stood out. Let's call him Paul. Paul, a specter in the realm of remote work, maintained an eerie silence that echoed through his unanswered emails and unheeded phone calls. A particular audit brought to light the need for 60 employees, including Paul, to sign a critical form. Swift compliance became the norm for 59 diligent workers, but Paul remained elusive. A relentless 3-month pursuit through the labyrinth of communication finally bore fruit, his signature, a tardy addition to the audit. This was not an isolated incident. Paul's procrastination extended to missing 2 mandatory online classes, each necessitating a convoluted effort to secure his participation. The chronicles of Paul's inefficiency unfolded like a suspenseful saga, with him consistently assuming the dubious position of the last to complete any assigned task. The plot thickened when the company, in a gesture of appreciation, decided to reward its workforce with new shirts. A grand endeavor, indeed, marred only by Paul's silence in response to the fervent efforts of size collection. The owner, setting the stage for a grand denouement, declared a universal rule: each address would receive 1 shirt, and there would be no room for returns or exchanges. In the meticulous process of gathering sizes and entering them into the sacred spreadsheet, Paul remained an enigma, an omission in the symphony of responses. Armed with a mischievous glint in the eye and a hint of rebellion, the orchestrator of this bureaucratic ballet seized an opportunity for sweet retribution. The owner's decree was clear, but so was the consequence for non-participation. In a calculated act of subversion, an extra small shirt was ordered for the phantom that was Paul, a gesture both symbolic and sly, echoing through the hallowed halls of a meticulously maintained spreadsheet. The grand irony unfolded as the gift meant to bring unity threatened to accentuate the individuality of one elusive employee. It was the mid-1970s, and as a 15-year-old, I often took up babysitting gigs to earn some extra pocket money. One such opportunity arose with a household on my paper route. Little did I know that the seemingly innocuous babysitting job would turn into a saga of time manipulation, meticulous instructions, and a revenge plot. The parents, habitual latecomers, requested my services on Saturday mornings. They asked me to be there by 8:30, and being punctual, I arrived a few minutes early. However, the parents were still getting ready and asked me to watch the kids while they prepared to head out. They eventually left the house at about 9:15. Before they departed, the wife gave me very specific instructions. I was allowed to have a snack, precisely 2 Oreos on the counter. No more, no less. She claimed to have poured a glass of milk for me, which was in the fridge next to the plastic milk jug, with a piece of tape on it showing the level. She warned me that she would check it when she returned, and any deviation would require an explanation. The kids were manageable, went to bed without any fuss, and the parents returned home at 12:20. The mother paid me for 3 hours about 10 minutes after they arrived. However, I noticed something wasn't right. "Excuse me, but this isn't right. I got here before 8:30, and it's now almost 12:30, that's 4 hours, not 3. We didn't leave until 9:15, and we got home at 12:15. I'm only paying you for 3 hours, the mother insisted. But I was watching the kids from 8:30. That doesn't matter, we were home, and you weren't in charge, we were. Feeling frustrated but accepting the money, I rode my bike home. A couple of weeks later, they called me for another babysitting session, and the scenario unfolded similarly: late departure and an impending payment dispute. However, I decided I'd had enough. 2 things were crucial in understanding the events that followed. First, the wife was a neat freak, possibly dealing with OCD. Everything in their home was perfectly organized. Second, this was the 1970s, and all canned goods had paper labels. So, the third time they called me in to babysit, expecting another round of tardiness and payment issues, I hatched a plan. They were running late again, and I knew I was going to get shortchanged for my time. I was seething with frustration. I entered the pantry and systematically tore the labels off each and every can. Campbell's soups had their own shelf, as did canned veggies and canned fruits, all now a chaotic mix of unlabeled cans. When they returned and tried to pay me less than what was fair, I refused the money, declaring my resignation from babysitting and, just to drive the point home, termination of their newspaper delivery service. Storming out, I left behind a pantry in disarray, hoping they'd be perplexed when they opened the door to find a chaotic array of bare metal cans. The battle of babysitting had come to an end, and my silent retaliation served as my small victory.